An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We've all heard it. We've all said it. It's a piece of wisdom so ingrained in our culture that it feels like a universal truth. A simple, daily habit to ward off illness and lock down our health. But is there any truth to it? Does an apple a day really keep the doctor away? Well, the answer is complicated. Because while science has one answer, recent history has another, much darker one. What if I told you that the most important apple a day for an entire city wasn't a piece of fruit, but a piece of paper? And for millions, this apple daily wasn't about personal health, but about public freedom. It wasn't about keeping a doctor away. It was about holding a global superpower at bay. This is the story of how a folksy health myth took on a shocking new meaning you need to hear. The story starts with that familiar proverb, a phrase that first popped up in a Welsh publication way back in 1866. The original version was a bit more direct. Eat an apple on going to bed, and you'll keep the doctor from earning his bread. It was a simple, memorable rhyme pushing the general idea that healthy eating leads to good health. For over a century, that's all it was. But then, science decided to put it to the test. So what does the research say? Can one fruit really be a silver bullet for our health? Apples are, without a doubt, nutritional powerhouses. They're loaded with fiber, especially a soluble fiber called pectin, plus vitamin C, potassium, and a whole bunch of powerful antioxidants. Studies have linked eating apples to a lot of positive outcomes. The nutrients in apples have been associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, certain cancers, asthma, and diabetes. Some research suggests the fiber helps lower bad cholesterol and manage blood sugar, while the antioxidants might help protect brain cells. In one 2013 study, researchers even used computer models to estimate that for people over 50, eating an apple a day could have a similar effect on reducing vascular deaths as taking a daily statin, a drug used for lowering cholesterol, and likely with fewer side effects. But here's the reality check. While apples are fantastic for you, the idea that they alone will stop you from ever needing a doctor is, scientifically, a myth. A major 2015 study investigated the proverb directly. It compared daily apple eaters to non-apple eaters and looked at their number of doctor visits. The result? No statistically significant difference. People who ate apples every day didn't visit the doctor any less than those who didn't. Interestingly, the study did find one small but significant difference. The apple eaters tended to use fewer prescription medications. So maybe the phrase should be, an apple a day keeps the pharmacist away. The verdict from science is clear. Apples are great for your health, but they aren't a magical cure-all. The proverb is just an oversimplification. But our story doesn't end there. Because in 1995, in a city humming with energy and anxiety, the phrase, an apple daily, was about to be completely redefined. It would become a symbol not of health, but of defiance. The year is 1995. Hong Kong is just 2 years away from being handed back to China by the British. In this city on edge, a firebrand entrepreneur named Jimmy Lai decides to start a newspaper. Lai was a self-made millionaire, a man who had escaped famine in mainland China as a boy and built a fashion empire, Giordano, from scratch. He wasn't a journalist. His move into media was fueled by a personal conviction, forged in the fire of political events. Lai, like many in Hong Kong, was horrified by the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, where the Chinese government violently crushed pro-democracy protests. That event convinced him to use his resources to fight for freedom. He founded a magazine, and then, on June 20th, 1995, he launched a newspaper. He called it Apple Daily. The name was a deliberate choice. He reportedly named it after the forbidden fruit from the Garden of Eden. If Eve hadn't eaten it, there would be no sin and therefore no news. But the paper's slogan gave the name its sharp political edge. It was a direct challenge to the encroaching power of Beijing. An apple a day, no liars can hold sway. From its very first issue, Apple Daily was unlike anything Hong Kong had ever seen. It broke the mold of traditional text-heavy newspapers. Instead, Apple Daily splashed its front pages with huge photos, bold graphics, and sensational headlines. It combined celebrity gossip and local news with a fiercely critical, pro-democracy stance against the government. This mix of tabloid journalism and defiant politics was an instant hit. It was loud, brash, and unapologetically anti-communist. It spoke in the colloquial Cantonese of the streets, connecting with a massive audience. It quickly became one of Hong Kong's best-selling newspapers, a vital voice in a media landscape where many others were starting to self-censor for fear of angering Beijing. For the next 26 years, Apple Daily wasn't just a newspaper. It was an institution, a participant. It played a key role in supporting every major pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. During the massive anti-extradition bill protests of 2019, Apple Daily provided unflinching coverage, exposing police brutality and political repression when other outlets stayed quiet. Jimmy Lai himself was often seen at the protests, a living symbol of his paper's commitment. Chinese state media labeled him a traitor, and his newspaper became public enemy #1. But this defiance came at a cost. The paper faced advertising boycotts and immense political pressure. And then, in 2020, Beijing made its move. China imposed a sweeping and hugely controversial national security law on Hong Kong. The law criminalized acts of secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces, with punishments as severe as life in prison. Critics argued its vague wording could be used to crush any form of dissent, effectively ending the one country, two systems framework that had guaranteed Hong Kong's freedoms. For Apple Daily, it was the beginning of the end. Shortly after the law passed, Jimmy Lai was arrested. In a move that sent shockwaves through the city, over 200 police officers raided the Apple Daily newsroom. The message was clear. This was a direct assault on freedom of the press. Still, the paper vowed to fight. The day after the raid, they printed a front page with a defiant Jimmy Lai in handcuffs, headlined, "Apple will fight on." Hong Kongers queued up to buy copies, pushing the print run from its usual 80,000 to over 500,000 in a stunning show of solidarity. But the pressure was relentless. Authorities claimed that articles calling for international sanctions against China amounted to collusion with foreign forces, a crime under the new law. The final blow came in June 2021. Hundreds of police raided the newsroom a second time, arresting 5 senior executives. Crucially, they also froze $18 million, about $2.3 million of the company's assets. That single act crippled the newspaper. With its bank accounts frozen, Apple Daily couldn't pay its staff or operating costs. The company was choked financially. There was no choice left. On June 23, 2021, Apple Daily announced it would print its final edition the next day. That night, as staff worked on the last issue, hundreds of citizens gathered outside, shining their phone flashlights in a silent, mournful vigil and chanting, "Hong Kongers, support Apple." The final print run was 1 million copies. Across the city, people stood in long lines to buy a piece of history, to hold the last breath of a free press. By midnight on June 24, 2021, after 26 years, the Apple Daily website went dark and its paper was gone. The closure was condemned internationally as a chilling blow to freedom of expression. It marked the death of the city's once vibrant and free press. Jimmy Lai, who is a British citizen, remains in prison. He has faced multiple charges, including for fraud and his role in pro-democracy protests, and faces the possibility of life in prison in his ongoing national security trial. So, back to our original question, does an apple a day really hold a key? When it comes to our health, the phrase is a nice reminder to eat well, but it's not a scientific guarantee. But for a city of millions, the idea of an apple daily, a free, critical, and defiant press, was absolutely the key to holding power accountable, the key to giving a voice to the voiceless, the key to the political health of their society. Its loss reveals a much harsher truth. It shows what happens when that key is taken away, when a society can no longer speak freely, and when the liars finally do hold sway. The story of Apple Daily is a stark reminder that some things, like a free press, are far more essential to a society's well-being than a piece of fruit. You don't realize how much you need them until they're gone. What does freedom of the press mean to you? Let me know in the comments below.